إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Today we are dealing with, today we're coming back from our long break in the Ramadan break, and then we took an extra week off so those people who could make up their fast, they can do that. And we're now back at our Arabic class. We're trying to do something a little bit different here that we didn't do earlier. And that is make the handouts more accessible to the people on the net and make the people more responsible for their homework that are in the class, inshallah. So we're going to go through this. The sisters are here, yes. We're going to go through a couple of rules that are for everyone to follow, and let's get started. Oh, before we do, I wanted to say, there's a few things. I'm not trying to be redundant. However, this is a review. Shukran. This should be mine. One should be like blue. I want that one back. Okay. This is a review. Then the purpose of this class is to enable you to become effective. You know, and you can't be effective unless you study, unless you memorize. I gather that those people who do not want to study, then they should take the tafsir class. Those people who want to study and actually learn Arabic, then they should take this Arabic class because it is a complete Arabic class. All right. Now, the first thing we were talking about in our review is the word araba. The word araba means to express what? Emotion, to make it crystal clear, to leave no doubt about a sentiment. That's what the word araba means. Language. What is language? Language is the sounds that come from our mouths or from our tongue that express our agrad, our desires, our needs, what we need. As a term, the Arabic language is that particular sounds and speech that was used by the people that we recognize and know as Arabs, right? The Quran has preserved that language. The ahadith, authentic hadith, have preserved that language, and also the texts, the fuhul al-kutub, the classical works of the educated Arabs. That is the basic class one basic thing that everyone should know going into this. Now let's go a little bit further. If you look at your handouts, it says it's an introduction to the Arabic language, right? I guess it's complete Arabic. What does it say right there? An introduction to the Arabic. Okay, you guys don't have the whole papers, okay? It says the complete Arabic class taught by Abu Tawbah. First, we're going to go through some rules. First, course description. In a classroom setting, the teacher will provide handouts with the required standards to learn. Note, everybody should understand this. The reason why people fail, the reason why students don't go further, and a lot of times we were talking to some teachers and they were saying the students blame the teachers a lot of time and say, oh, you know, he's holding back. He's not giving us all. He wants to keep the secrets for himself so that the students don't get better than him. He's afraid. When in actuality, that's not the case. No one wants you to be better than themselves except your father and your teachers. Okay? Those are the only two people that want you to be better than them. What happens is when you don't memorize, when you don't study, when you don't complete the necessary standard, when you don't reach the necessary standard, the teacher cannot go any further with you. And if he does go further with you, it's only as a familiarization course and not an actual teaching. So if you want to go further, you have to man up. You have to really get down and do your work. Doing your work in the Arabic science is to memorize and to try to comprehend. The only way you can do that is first through memorization, second through talking to your teacher and questioning. Okay? Moving right along. In a classroom setting, the teacher will provide handouts with the required standards to learn, hence meaning memorize. The teacher will then explain the handouts and clarify necessary specifics. Reading a book is not like taking a class. And it's not like taking a lecture. A lecture, you hear some things that amaze you. You may walk out and forget half the things that were said and only remember one point. Whereas in a class, you are required to learn everything. You read the handout, you get an idea, and then the teacher, he clarifies those little subtleties that are not made clear through writing. That's what we're doing here. Students are required to memorize the handouts and the lesson before the next class. Unlike the tafsir class, the tafsir class is, even though it's a lesson that is mustaqillah. Each class is in and of its own self, by itself, independent of the other class. Whereas Arabic is a stair-stepped lesson. One part is directly related to the next part. So if you don't get the first part, you cannot get the second part clearly. And if you don't get it clearly, then you get it mumbled. And if it's mumble jumble, then it's not correct. And there are only 2 grades in this class. Actually, 1 grade. There is excellent and there is incomplete. So either you got excellent or it was incomplete. Moving right along, students are required to memorize the handouts and the lesson before the next class. Memorize the handouts and the lesson before the next class. There is a weekly quiz and spontaneous verbal challenges. Understand that spontaneous verbal challenges are more important than the quizzes. Because ours is a verbal. Ours is an oral thing. Okay? Ours is an oral tradition that gets passed down mano mano. No offense to the ladies. And if you can't articulate it in front of your teacher when you're nervous, you are not expected to articulate it in front of someone who is not your teacher. So if you can get past me, then you're good. And that's what the point for the teacher. They said expertise, brilliance comes from a strict teacher. So let's hope that we get some brilliance and we hope that we get a strict teacher. So it says, lesson before the next. There is a weekly quiz and spontaneous verbal challenges. At the end of each phase, the student is required to prove mastery in order to receive a grade. Mastery. Okay, and their phases. We talked earlier, how many sciences are there in Arabic? There are 13 sciences in Arabic, right? Each one is considered a phase here, okay? Each one is a phase. We will go through each 13 sciences, and we will treat it mustaqillah and join it where it needs to be joined. You will master each one, or you will stay at that one until you get mastery, period. It's not as hard as it seems. There's only 1 grade, excellent. Those who do not attain it will be considered as having not completed the course. We'll move up. Time. Classes are on Saturdays at approximately 5:30 p.m. However, this time is subject to change with the times of Salah. Objectives. Upon completion of this course, the student will have acquired a general expertise in the Arabic language unrivaled by what is offered in the Western educational system. That is clear. However, that is not our objective. Our objective is to produce a stronger student of knowledge, a real talib al-ilm. Not one that's mustajil, someone who's so not anxious, but in a rush to get complete, but one that's in a rush to be complete. There is a difference. Learn what in minhaj, a lot of people talking about minhaj these years. Minhaj is not getting to the end necessarily, but fulfilling all the obligations where you're at in order to move ahead. It doesn't matter which step you're on when Yawm al-Qiyamah comes, but it does matter that you completed each previous step. Okay, so that's what we want to produce, a stronger student of knowledge, to make available in English what was not previously known, to provide a standard primer for the beginner and a reference book for the expert, and hence enable more people to learn and teach. Knowledge precedes words and deeds. So you have to learn before you can teach. And the reason why we need a standard primer, does everybody, hold on, stop. Does anybody know, go down a little bit, please. Does everybody know what a standard primer is? A standard primer is a book or a text that everyone can say we are on the same sheet of proverbial music. Have you, like for instance, if you read the biography of Ibn Uthaymin, rahimahullah, what he did and what he studied in the Arabic language, it will have on there Al-Ajrumiyya. If you read the biography of his teacher, As-Sa'di, it will have on there Al-Ajrumiyya. If you read Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah, it will say Al-Ajrumiyya. Muhammad Al-Fulat, Umar Muhammad Al-Fulata, it will say Al-Ajrumiyya. In fact, I would dare say if you read 90% of the ulama, since the Ajrumiyya, it will say the Ajrumiyya. So the Ajrumiyya is a standard primer, a basic text that every beginner passes through and the experts are not free from referring to. That's what we want to present. To enable, when I was with Talib al-Ilm, they didn't have anything in English for Al-Ajrumiyya. We want to not reinvent the wheel, but make something available for those new students and those other students who come on after us, and those people who are unable to go travel, not to miss out. And those people who have self-studied and learned to be able to refer back and say, okay, yeah, I got everything I need to get. And for them to know. That's our objective here. Go ahead. Outline. The course will follow the following topics, inshallah. The reason why we say inshallah, of course, Allah knows best what's going to happen, but we know that students drop out. It's normally the student who weasels out and finds an excuse not to complete. So inshallah, if you're here, we'll get it done. Now with the videos and everything, we can record the lesson and not waste our energy, and then when you're ready, you can come back to it. Inshallah ta'ala. General knowledge of Arabic. General knowledge of Arabic means those things, like I said, what does the word Araba mean? What does language mean? Those basic things about the lugha. Next, orthography. Orthography deals with the makharij and the huruf. How to pronounce the letter and what the letter looks like and the sifat of the letter. That's the first part. Second, grammar, nahwu. Dealing with the ajrumiyya, basically, in this, knowing the grammar, where to put a word, or awakhir al-kalimi, the last part of the letters. Etymology, sarf, and we may not do it in this order. We might switch the orders. A lot of people want to hear and see al-ajrumiyya. But in actuality, lamiyya or al-bina, that should go first, which is sarf. So if we want to do what's right, as opposed to what's popular, we would start off with sarf. First and foremost, because it is the science through which we recognize and learn about a word, what? End the sentence. Before you enter it into a sentence. Pay attention. Before you enter in a sentence, and grammar is what? Right. Recognizing the placement of a word after it's been added into a sentence. What that word means due to its placement in a sentence. Right? So which comes first? Sarf. And as a non-Arab speaker, originally, you always make sarf. As sarf is the breakdown of the word. You don't know what a word is until you make sarf. So you're constantly in need of sarf. You may not have any grammar, but you need to know what that word means and how to figure out what it means. Right? You can walk, even in English, if someone had a great vocabulary, said, iPhone, I hungry, you would be able to understand them. But if they don't have any grammar, but if they had all the grammar in the world but no vocabulary, there's no conversation. Fatadabbaru. Think about that. Rasmi, which is dictation, and these definitions are mine because a lot of these things have not been translated into English, so this is how I express these terms. Wallahu a'lam. Someone may come after and say, well, there's a better term for that. Okay? Rasmi, generally, is dictation. Insha'u is composition, how to speak properly and clearly, like for instance, we'll get to it. Eloquence was his balagha and poetry or shi'ru. These are the sciences, the general sciences. From these you get 13 sciences. We'll talk about it later. Most of the times in this outline, we're going to use classical works for these sciences when they're available. In the absence of a classical work, what we will do, we will make up a primer in English. For example, in orthography, there was no primer work. Well, we made master letters to stand in its place, to be a standard primer in that case. Okay? So let's go on. And then we're going to enhance them with notes and commentary. The notes and commentary are as important as knowing the translation, because you can't translate these works. You have to explain them. So the notes and the commentary are very vital for the student that's going further to go study these in full Arabic and the student that's not, so that he doesn't miss anything. Required materials. A view binder, that's going to be provided by me. That's for your handouts. A composition or spiral notebook for classroom use and homework. Your red pen, you will have a red pen. So if I need to write something, I don't have to look in my bag for a red pen. Everybody has their own red pen that I can just grab and use. It's best to get one of those big pens that you can flip the different colors. That might help out. Then sharp pencils and black and blue pens or black and blue pens, but you have to sharpen the pencils before class. No one's going to be allowed to sharpen pencils during class. Highlighter or color pen, not red. For the student, if you want to highlight some notes, if you want to make a question, because when you write questions, I want you to put your questions in the sidelines, the hamish on the sides, or on the bottom, or the top. I want you to highlight it, but I want you to highlight it in your colors, not my colors. My color is red. So when you look at your notes in 10 years or 5 years, you can recognize immediately these were my questions, or these were someone else's question, and I wrote it down. This was a comment that was not the teacher's, and the comment teacher was in red when the teacher wrote on it. It's very important in the future because your notebook will become your teaching utensil in the future. Going along, it says grading plan. Homework will be graded on neatness, completion, comprehension of assignment. What are you guys thinking about homework? This is not tafsir class, so what am I going to ask you to do? I'm going to ask you to memorize. Ask you to memorize. That is most of your homework going to be. Memorization. I will provide you with the written material that you need to read. You will have reading assignments and memorization. That is it. So you don't have to buy notebooks. I'll provide you with all of it. Inshallah. All verification. Could you raise this up, please? Could you raise this up? Thank you. All verification will be graded on the strength of memory, clarity, and comprehension of the memorized material outside of the memorized format. What does that mean? I will question you. I will say, okay, recite to me some particular point. You will recite that point to me. How strong? If you stumble through it, alhamdulillah, barakallahu feekum. But if you recite it strong, the Prophet Anas ibn Malik was given up by his mother to go to the Prophet to be his servant. And he was a servant for the Prophet for 10 years. And one of the things the Prophet did before taking on this young man as his apprentice to allow him to be his servant, he listened to him recite Quran. He had him recite Quran, and Anas says that I reciting, letting him know through my recitation that I understood the meanings of what I was saying. And that impressed the Prophet ﷺ. It might have been one of the reasons why the Prophet ﷺ allowed him to be his servant. So we see here when you recite, I want you to recite with knowledge. Show that you know what you're talking about through your recitation. And then I'm going to question you to express to me what it is that you know outside of the format that you have it in. Because some people may get stuck on it. Like a lot of times in Mauritania, if you ask some of the younger students anything out of order, they can't answer you. Why? They don't have the Oxford School of Education like we have here in the United States. We may not recognize it, but we have a style of academia that is beautiful. And learning how to write and take notes and read, where theirs is strictly memorization. A child might memorize half the Quran and never know anything about reading. Okay? So this is their style. So we have both worlds that we can pull from. So I want you to be able to express to me what it is that you memorized and not have to stick to the format that it was memorized in. Can you take it apart and put it back together? That's vital. Because knowledge is not what's memorized. Knowledge is what is useful. And you can't use it just in that format because life don't come just like that. Inshallah. So it says, students will be graded on active, willing participation in class and mental preparedness. That's clear. You have any questions about that? Anybody sleeping in the class and doing all drooling and everything? The teacher reserves the right to call upon any student on any given day to review the organization and completeness of their composition notebook. This is your notes. Every day you are writing notes. You're listening to lectures. You're being told things. I want to see your notes. Why? Because at the end of it, we have to produce someone who is adlun dabitun, who is upright and just in their deen, and dabtan, meaning meticulous and expert in his thing. So I want to see your notes. Have you been following it? And dabt is not only dabt al-sadr, it's dabt al-kitaba. Dabt al-sadr is that someone memorized it in his chest. Like the Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he used to sit in class. He was the only one that Imam Malik used to let sit in class without any books. And he used to lick his finger and make like he's writing in the air. He was a young boy. He was one of the youngest boys in the class. He was the only child in the class. So the older man was like, look at this kid. What are you doing? I'm writing down what the sheikh said. He had dabt al-sadr. They said, oh yeah? They would flip back their papers. What'd he say after this? And he would flip back his imaginary papers and start reciting. He got so good, they would tell him something and then let him start reciting so they could copy their notes and check their notes on his memory. This is called dabt al-sadr. Unless you like that, get to writing, okay? And write your notes and put your things down in order so that we can follow you, okay? All right, capiche? So, I want to review your notes and be able to say, yes, this person follows us. One of my teachers, Dr. Lahi, used to do this to us. When we studied Usul al-Fiqh, he used to just snatch out notebooks, flip through it, look through, what happened? You know, you think you're going to remember, but you don't. Put the note there. It helps. All right. Distant students will be asked, inshallah, to send in their notebooks for review. That's for those people on the internet who want to study and they can't come to the Boogie Down and get to these classes, then send us your notebooks and we'll deal with that on a one-on-one basis, inshallah. Okay, go on, bro. Classroom conduct. Very important. Since we're in the masjid, alhamdulillah, istami'u, ya akhawat. Listen to this right here, young ladies. This is especially for what y'all are just doing right now. Classroom conduct. No talking, no eating, no gum chewing, no sleeping or otherwise socializing once the teacher is standing in front of the classroom. No one asks anyone else a question. Sheikh Muhammad Salim used to say to the other person who answered the question, why don't you go make your own class? He used to tell him, why don't you go make your own campsite, actually. You know, go make your own campsite and see how many people come. You know, and want to hear. Otherwise, don't ignore the person if they start talking to you. This is serious business learning. Serious business. And it distracts me because I want to answer the question and I don't want to lose my train of thought. So ask me any question that you have. It's not petty. It's not irrelevant. Ask. Someone said something, I think it was to Imam Shafi again, I think Ahmed ibn Hanbal and someone else, they were saying something to Imam Shafi about a stupid question, and Imam Shafi said, the only stupid thing is to pretend that you know something that you didn't really understand with regards to lessons. Meaning there's no stupid question. But the stupid thing is to pretend that you understood an issue when you really didn't understand it. So let's go on and say, the teacher reserves the right to, okay, the teacher reserves the right, okay, drinking is allowed, okay? Drinking is allowed. No eating, but drinking is allowed. The teacher reserves the right to return salams on behalf of the whole class. The students are asked to focus on their lessons. This is very important also. People come in the masjid, they say, Salaam alaikum. Everybody, mind your business. Your business is studying. I'll give the salams back. That's allowed. That's what I want to do. Students can get up and leave without permission from the teacher. Ma'ruf. Questions. Students can yell out any question they have without waiting to be recognized. You may be told to hold on, but your question, inshallah, will be addressed. Questions will be entertained at any time during the class or while the teacher is inside the masjid. Okay? Ideas and comments. In general, your ideas, comments, suggestions, and challenges are welcome. However, your discretion in these matters is expected. Some people want to argue and debate. So even on the internet, people want to argue and debate about things. We don't have time to deal with them, and they're wrong a lot of the times also. So it wastes time. And it's like, you'll get there when you get there. Just take time. We're going to get you there. Just take time. So have some discretion in the questions. You are encouraged to take advantage of the teacher's presence. You may also contact the administration via email with additional questions and comments. That is Abdul Hakim and Makeen. You call them on the internet. They're always ready to answer you. Okay? Tentative schedule. Each class will last approximately 1 hour. Respectfully submitted, Abu Toba. Go on down. I'm going, Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. An introduction to the sciences of Arabic. While ago, open up your papers to the introduction to the sciences of Arabic. While ago, I gave you guys let me start again. There's a starting point and there's a finishing point. the starting point with Arabic, if we don't want to leave any rock unturned, is to say, what is Arabic? After we understand what Arabic and language is, and Arabic language is, and to understand that what has preserved the Arabic language. Everybody should know this is the Quran and the Hadith, and the poetry of Jahiliyyah, okay? The Thiqatul Arab, you know, the educated amongst the Arabs, they have preserved this language. After that, the next thing to know is what? What's the next part of the lesson? The lesson is ingrained, the outline is ingrained in your head. What's next? That the Arabic sciences are how many? 13 in order, right? So here it is. We're going to learn what the 13 sciences are because we should be familiar with that. So it says, this is a poem, this is a translation of a poem that was written by Fairuz Abadi in the introduction of his famous dictionary, Al-Qamus Al-Muhit. Al-Qamus Al-Muhit was a specialized dictionary that was written with the ends of the words looked up, not the beginnings of the words. You know, in English, you look up the first letter of the word. In Al-Qamus Al-Muhit, you look at the last letter of the word first to find out the word. Why is that? Because this book was written for poets. This book was written for poets. Why? Because poets need every word in the Arabic language. Because as you'll see, when you study poetry, the last letter of the word of the line is what makes it rhyme. So you need to know a word that has the meaning that you want with the last letter that you need. So he composed a whole dictionary. It's called the Ocean. Okay? Of words, just when you look them up with the last letter. Very strong. Go back down. Go back down. I'm not finished with that. In the introduction, it's a very, very lengthy book. It's in 2 volumes. It's studied in Mauritania. Go back up a little bit. In the beginning of it, he said, حِفْظُ اللُّغَاتِ عَلَيْنَا فَرْضٌ كَحِفْظِ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَيْسَ يُحْفَظُ دِينٌ إِلَّا بِحِفْظِ اللُّغَاتِ, which basically means preserving this language upon us is fardun, just like salat. Because you can't protect this here deen without you learning lughat. That's how I translated that poem. But he said, حِفْظُ اللُّغَاتِ عَلَيْنَا, preserving the language alayna is upon us, fardun. He's saying the ruling that the people of the past, the Salaf used to have with regards to learning the Arabic language. And when we say learning, we don't mean Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, kayfa halak, alhamdulillah, ma smuk, ismi fulan. That's not what we mean. We mean understanding it dabtan, you know, inside and out. Dakhiliya wa batiniya. Inside and out. They used to consider it fard on some certain people. Why? Just like preserving the salah. Why? Because you cannot preserve this deen without having the language preserved. Okay? So we got to speed up. So he says that. Go on. Arabic. Here goes the poem. It says Arabic. The sciences of Arabic are 13 arts of rhetoric. Start off with sarf, the nahwu do, al-rasmu plus al-insha'u. Balagha, break it down in 3. Bayan, badi'u, ma'ani. Then qardu, shit or poetry. Arudu mixed with qawafi. Khataba brings the art of speech, and history is what they teach. If texts of old mutun you seize, then know you've gathered all the keys. And we'll break it down right quick. There was a mistake. It said khitaba, and then there was some other word there, and it's been changed, because the word is khataba, not khitaba, and as we'll get to that. And history is what they teach. So, breaking it down, the sciences of Arabic are 13 arts of rhetoric. Go, you can leave the poem away. You're expected to memorize. I told you guys to memorize this before. You should have memorized it. Go up. Now it says rhetoric. Rhetoric has been defined as the art of speaking or writing effectively. The principles and rules of composition formulated by critics of ancient times. Skill in the effective use of speech, and nowadays it usually means speech that is insincere and or unnecessarily grandiloquent. Okay, grandiloquent means, you know, pompous, he's talking all this big talk and you don't need to use those big words, okay? As a terminology, rhetoric refers to the principles and rules of speaking and writing extracted from the Quran, the authentic hadith, and the classical writings of the Arabs of old. Similar to what we mean is what the word Arabic and how the language has been preserved. So, it must be understood that a word can only be found in 1 or 2 conditions. Very important point. Highlight that. Make it clear that at this point, after we understand that there are 13 signs, we go to the next point, which is that a word can only be found in 1 or 2 situations, whether it's by itself or it's in a sentence. Since that's the case, therefore, begin your study of Arabic with what goes next. Sarf. What is sarf? Sarf, or etymology, as it is the science through which we study a word by itself before it's been entered into a sentence. That's the definition of sarf. Going down. Then you should study nahwu. Nahwu or grammar is the science through which we study the classes of words, their inflections, their functions, and how they relate in a sentence. Pay attention to the language. It says the classes of words, meaning the types of words, their inflections, how they change, their functions, what their jobs are, and how they relate to each other in a particular sentence. It is a system of rules that define what is to be preferred and what is to be avoided in the formulation of a sentence. That is what grammar is. That is what nahwu teaches you. Okay? Then after studying nahwu, sarf and nahwu, follow them up with al-rasmi or al-imla. Imla, as they are the nomenclature and rules of dictation. What is dictation? Dictation is literally to when you hear a word, you can see it. Okay? So it is actually the rules of spelling. But not alone that, it's the nomenclature. It is the science through which we learn the rules of spelling and how to write what has been said. It is important to note that the rasmi of the Quran is treated as its own section by the scholars. The rasmi al-Quran, how the Quran is written and everything, there are particular rules, and so it's dealt with in that way. Here we mean rasmi outside of the Quran. Okay? Rasmi is very easy and it's fun to learn. Following this order of study will give your mind the time it needs to completely absorb the rules and their detailed applications. Okay? If you take your time, you'll get it. Okay? Because Rasmi utilizes a lot of sarf and it utilizes a lot of nahwu. Okay? Right. Going along, next take lessons in al-insha'u, which literally means to grow up and develop. As a term, al-insha'u is the science through which we learn how to develop and arrange feelings, emotions, ideas, and descriptions into clear Arabic expressions. For example, in English, we say, I'm going to cut my hair. In Arabic, you don't say that because it sounds like you're saying, I'm going to chop my hair. You don't say, I'm going to chop my hair. You say, I'm going to get my hair barbered. I have to hurry up. It is called the art of composition, the art of expressing specific thoughts in the normal expected method. Okay. Again, the order in which one learns is just as important as what one learns. And by learning how to organize one's thoughts into clear statements, al-insha'u acts as a preview to the science of balagha. We'll come back to this after the salah so we can finish this lesson. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Hold on. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We're on part 2 of lesson 1. I'm calling this lesson 1. Okay, in the Arabic Introduction to Arabic Sciences, as though we're starting off afresh again. So this is part 2 of that. And I was just stating to some of the brothers before the ladies came down, is that you can't find this. What you're getting on the board right now, and it's not a thing of bragging or anything like that, it's a thing of reality. Appreciate it. Okay? You're not going to find this anywhere else in English or even in Arabic in one place. Okay? You'd have to search through volumes, books, and still, it's not going to be something that you're going to have confidence if you find in a book that this is the correct understanding and meaning of what these words mean. The only way you're going to get this and understand it and be confident about it is if it's passed down to you the way it's being passed down to you now, the way it was passed down to me and my teachers. And it's been, see, the problem I don't want you all to follow into that I fell into. When we took these lessons, we didn't take good notes a lot of times. We figured, man, I'm never going back to America. I'm always going to be here. I'll never have to be without my teachers. So what I got to write this stuff down for? And then after you leave that place and then you come into this world and you realize you're in another world, getting to be able to talk back to those teachers to get the meticulous, bulked answer that you need so that you can go forth sure-footed. And as they say, take a full 38 step is very difficult. So in order to avoid that, the Prophet ﷺ said, the Muslim doesn't fall into the same hole twice, right? He said that after one of the mushrikeen came to him and said, oh, Prophet, he fought in Badr. I have daughters, please don't kill me. And the Prophet sent him home and didn't kill him, didn't even make him pay ransom. Then he caught him at Uhud, right? And he said the same thing. Oh, Rasulullah, I'm miskeen, I ain't got no money. My daughters, don't kill me. The Prophet said, nah, you ain't going to pull your beard and say that you tricked Muhammad twice. Nah, it's not going to happen. And he ordered him to be killed right there on the spot. And then he said that statement, the Muslim, the believer, doesn't fall into the same hole twice. So I meant to say all that to say that we don't want to fall in the same hole twice. Take these lessons, and I'm particularly talking about this. Now, this is a very basic lesson. One of the brothers was asking me, okay, we're talking about the 13 sciences. We're just giving you a basic explanation of what the 13 sciences are. I don't know many people that can explain to you just basically what the 13 sciences are. Okay? So I just want you guys to pay attention to that point. I hope I wasn't sounding redundant. Going back, go up one, please. We'll go back to the last point. And yes, I do expect you all to notice, yes, there will be a test next week for anybody who doubted. Yes, it will be oral right here. Okay? It will be an oral test. I expect you to recite to me the poem and to explain to me any one of the sciences that I ask you about. Just basically what that science is about. Okay, so it says, again, the order in which one learns is just as important as what one learns. And by learning how to organize one's thoughts into clear statements, this is the science of al-insha'u, which is the science called composition, which is the science that you learn how to speak in a way that is normal, what people expect. Like I said, in English, you can't say, or in Arabic, you can't say halaqtu sha'ri, I chopped my hair. Right? I mean, qata'tu sha'ri. You can't say qata'tu, because that means I chopped. I cut, but we would translate it as cut. So it's not just a raw translation that can go forth. You have to understand how the Arabs say that. And there's a point, the principle here, write it down. For insha'u is that the people will say, Ma sami'u al-Arab hakadha. The Arabs were not heard speaking that way. That is a proof in Arabic. The Arabs were not heard speaking. Why do we speak it this way? Because remember, from the first lesson, the very first lesson, we said that Arabic language is passed down aban an jad, from grandfather to son. So it's nothing that we can make up. It's passed down, naqlan. Right. So we have to accept it, naqlan, and accept the rules therewith. And we find some basics of them in insha'u. And insha'u acts as a preview to the science of balagha. Turn to balagha, please. Balagha, or the art of eloquence. Everybody talks about balagha and acts as though it's something is so hard to reach. It is not. If you take steps, small steps, al-ilmu bit-ta'allum. Knowledge is by studying. Studying is taking one small issue at a time, just like you take one step at a time, just like you say one letter at a time, and you make words, and words become sentences, and then you can speak a whole novel. Likewise, if you study the Arabic sciences one issue at a time, you will come to the science of balagha, which is eloquence. Balagha is composed of 3 different sub-sciences. These sub-sciences are called bayan, badi'u, and ma'ani. Okay? Bayan should be studied first, as it is the art through which we learn how to express one meaning through a number of different ways, along with having suitable language to make its meaning clear. What'd I say? I said that it is through the language, the science that we use to express one meaning. We mean to say one thing, but we want to say it in a way, or many different ways, to make it clear. You feel me? What I say, you feel me? What does that mean? You understand? You got that? We cool? All types of ways you can say, and people may think that's slang, but slang represents a lot of balagha. Very clear. So, badi'u is the art, badi'u is the art wherein we learn the detailed and subtle ways used to beautify language from every angle. In this science, al-badi', we start to learn how you, jamal al-lugha, how you beautify your speech without losing context. It says basically how to beautify speech without losing clarity. Some people talk so much and then you don't understand the thing. It sounds so good, they were saying, and then the noble brother, and then you bored out your mind about the noble brother and then the lofty shirt. And then, what is that? So then you start to hear through badi'u how to beautify speech without losing clarity of intent or using words out of their proper context. Next is ma'ani. Ma'ani is the art wherein one masters word meanings from a linguistic, technical, and colloquial standpoint. Colloquial, what do we mean when we say colloquial?
That's
No us. Next.
It's not considered to be
Everyday usage.
Okay.
Colloquial is everyday usage. Colloquial is slang.
okay, slang, okay.
Spoken. The way it's utilized by the normal folk. That's colloquial meaning. For example, we say, what's up? If you said that to someone who's just learning English for the first time, he would say, I don't know, it's cloudy today. You know? Or if someone who learned, Arabic for the first time and somebody said, shlonek. Hey, shlonek. What's your color? Say, I'm brown. From the boogie down. Or something like that. No, it doesn't mean how you're feeling. Because he takes a literal meaning. So this is on how to understand the meaning from its linguistic, its technical, and its colloquial usage. Okay? Then, not only does he learn how to master that, then this person skillfully, adroitly uses that knowledge as a visa to eloquence. What does it mean as a visa? As a mode, as the way to arrive to be eloquent. Dropping the right words to tickle the heart of the intellectual mind. This is what eloquence, this is what this ma'ani is going to do for a person. Then qardu shi'r, or poetry. Qardu shi'r is literally qawlu shi'r, the statement, or insha'uhu or bida'atuhu. This is what qardu shi'r is. Is the art of versification. Okay? Why versification and not rhyme? Because this is the theme in the story. Some things are poetic, but it don't rhyme, right? But it's poetic, as opposed to satirical. Okay? Or sarcastical. So this is a poetic in meaning. This is what qardu shi'r. Along with the shi'r, of learning how to versify something, you have to learn what is called arud and qawafi. Arud are the rules of the 16 scales of poetry, or meters in poetry. There are 16 different ways. And when we learn poetry, we go through it, and it's not something that's difficult. It just takes somebody to just lay it out for you. And you learn how a poem is arrived. There is like we say, فعل ذو التجريد no. مفعول مفاعل مفعول مفاعلة مستفعل فاعل مستفعل فاعل. These are different awzan in poetry. Okay? مستفعل 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 قال عبيد ربه محمد مستفعل مستفعل مستفعل. And then you understand what does that mean. That's the mode that someone uses in each word, that there's a pause. You have to have a pause on your word. And you have to find a word that fits that scale in order to make the statement that you wanted to make. And there are 16 different ones, and there's different ways of adjusting them. We will learn and become familiar with that. Okay? So it is not foreign anymore. Insha'Allah ta'ala. Then there's qawafi. Qawafi is the art of line endings, meaning the art of the actual rhyme. For example, you have lamiyah. بفعل لا فعل ذو التجريد أو فعل يأتي ومكسور عين أو ألا فعل. You see the lam at the end, like that? Or he says, the mimiyah. And the last letter is going to let you know what that whole rhyme is going to be on that last letter. أمن أمي أو فدمنة لم تكلمي بحومانة دراجة فلم تثلمي. So every last line is going to have a meme on it, or every last is going to have a lam on it, or a ra on it, or something like that. That art is called qawafi, the art of the rhyme. And there are rules and regulations surrounding that. And that's what qawafi is, and this is what we should know, just recognizing what the sciences of Arabic deal with. Going down, you have khutaba. Now, from khutaba, you have khutaba, you have khitaba, and you have khataba. Khutaba is what the imam does on the khutbah. He stands up there and he gives a lecture, right? Then you have khitaba. This is what a man does when he wants to marry a woman. Then you have khataba, and this is the art of irtijal al-kalam, meaning a man stands on his feet and he speaks without utilizing paper or a book or reading from a book, and he organizes his thoughts like pearls and brings about the points that he wants without saying or stuttering and doing these types of things. This is called the art of khutaba. It's more of an art of thinking than it is of applicating. And you can only get there Because remember, you're going to khutbah after you've studied nahwu wa sarf, and after sarf, then you went to insha'u and then rasmi. Then you did balagha and its 3 sciences. Then you went to shi'r, poetry. You've memorized an arsenal that you can pull from. And now you're utilizing these things through your khutbah. So it's not just mujarrad and open, just, oh, I'm just going to start talking. No. You're talking based on something. Does that make sense? Okay. So it says here, is the art of speaking on one's feet without reading from a book or paper. Organizing one's thoughts on the spot to express clear points. Tariq comes next. Tariq, and some of them said, khutbah, what is he doing? He's showing you the history. What is he showing you the history of? History is the science or the knowledge, being familiar of the beginning of something up to its present point. Okay? That's what history is. Here, when we talk about history, we're talking about the life of the language and its notable events and people from the beginning to its end. You guys say, well, I don't know the history. How am I going to learn, tariq, lugha? Let me ask you, where did the alphabet come from? My goodness.
From Arabic language.
What's that?
It came from
The Arabic language? Where did all alphabet come from?
It came from the Arabs.
The 6 kings. Automatically, you're starting with the history of the lugha. The 6 kings, what was the first one's name? Abu Jad. And the next, so you understand what I'm saying? By the time you get here, you will have memorized a whole litany of history. Do you understand my point here? It's not as far-fetched or out of reach as you may assume. If you follow, like it says, if you follow the order that you're told to study, it won't seem strange when you start to hear about the tariq of the 6 kings. Abjad, Hawaz, Huttiya Kaliman, Sa'fas, Qurishat, Thaqid, Dadig. It's not strange for you to mention what happened to them, how they perished, and where everyone else got their language from. And then to start talking about after that, Nahwu. Where did we get Nahwu from? From Ali ibn Abi Talib. When he said, Inhu Nahwu dhalik. Right? When it came to him and he said he ordered them to write similar to this. With the language. So you start to give the history of the language. You said, if you remember the first poem that we went in this book, we said this is the poem that's in the big Arabic dictionary, Qamus Muhit. That goes in tariq. Memorizing the language or preserving the language is farded upon us, just like it's preserving the salah, because you can't preserve this deen without preserving the lughat. That all goes in the history. And it's a knowledge of the life of the language and its notables, meaning notable events and people from its beginning to its present time. Like the names of those other people, which automatically puts you into the next text, which is Mutun al-Lugha. Mutun al-Lugha are the classical texts, what we call in Arabic Fuhul al-Kutub. What do you call it? A fahl is a stallion. The stallion books. It may not make sense right off the back in English, but the stallion books are the Fuhul al-Kutub, the classical works. What is a classical work? It's similar to a standard primer, if not the exact same thing. It is we call it Kitab al-Asl. It is the book that everybody else is mu'tamadun alayh. Everybody else is dependent on. That work is called a klasin, al-mutun. And it says the classical texts are the academic works that everyone depends upon. The original books from which others derive their works. Like this work that I'm writing right now, it's not considered a classical work. Why? Because this work is derived from the works of many, many other people's works. And it's the lowest level of authordom, which is called naql. I just bring things over here, bring it over here, and reorganize it. Of course, with the reasons why someone should write, to bring something new, to explain, and we explained that in our objective. Because there are 5 reasons why you should write. And if you don't fulfill some of them, you shouldn't write. And we spoke about some of them in the beginning. To put into English what has never been brought before, what was unknown before. To enable people. So again, this is what we're going through. This is the beginning and the end of our lesson for today. I expect you guys to memorize this. Do I have any questions at this time? If there are no questions for me, then I do not have any questions for you at this time. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم.